Hello and welcome to a new Ukraine war update. It's been a while, and today's update is intense, so I'll keep it short and get right into it. If you appreciate the effort I put into this video, please show your support with a like and a comment. The full 30-minute uncensored version of this video can be found on my Telegram. The link is in the description. This group of Ukrainian special forces noticed an idle FPV drone lying across a dirt road just in time before it could launch an ambush on them and open fire. The men needed several shots, but eventually, the drone detonated. Just as intense was this moment when a group of Russian soldiers on motorcycles came under attack from a Ukrainian FPV drone chasing one of their vehicles. The men opened fire on the drone but missed all their shots as it zipped over their heads and turned around to make another attack run. While doing so, it narrowly missed the Russian soldier who was lucky enough to dodge both the drone and the following explosion. In the meantime, the Russian soldier on the motorcycle who had been chased by the drone at the beginning crashed his vehicle but was not wounded. His comrades quickly lent him a hand to help him get back on his feet. Intense GoPro footage captured the moment a Ukrainian soldier triggered an anti-personnel mine while his group was leaving a building. The men were part of a sniper unit operating in Pokrovsk in the summer of 2024, but the footage was only recently released. Here we have what was reported to be the feed from a Ukrainian FPV interceptor drone that was chasing a Russian fixed-wing kamikaze drone, which in turn was chasing a Ukrainian pickup truck. Sadly for the Ukrainians, the Russian drone won the race and managed to strike the Ukrainian vehicle before the FPV drone could intercept it. Here is more proof that today's update is crazy. Ukrainian footage shows a Russian tank shooting down an FPV drone with its main cannon. While this was definitely an insanely lucky shot, it was more likely that the drone was taken down by the massive pressure wave released in front of the main gun after each shot. Still, insane timing if you ask me. Just as insane is this Ukrainian FPV drone footage showing the interception of a Russian helicopter midair by the drone, the first 100% confirmed interception of its kind in this war. There have been reports of similar incidents before, but all lacked confirmation footage showing the helicopters being hit and going down afterward. This time, we have it. I have to say, this war is getting crazier every day. Ukraine's 3rd Assault Brigade recently released intense helmet cam footage showing heavy close-quarters urban combat with Russian sabotage and reconnaissance forces in the Novoselivka area. The footage was filmed by scouts tasked with preventing Russian forces from establishing a foothold for an attack on Oskol and cutting off the Izium-Sloviansk highway. After the Ukrainian scouts had taken up positions in an elongated, abandoned, empty building that looked like a warehouse, they began their observation, during which one of the soldiers suddenly spotted a Russian soldier.
Вижу. Крайнее окно, посмотри в теплак. У него прям видно силуэт хорошо. Прям самое-самое левое. Видишь? Да, это он стоит.
After an incoming FPV drone interrupted the relative silence, the Ukrainians opened fire with their rifles, and a short firefight broke out. The scouts ceased fire when a second FPV drone arrived on the scene and struck what appeared to be the roof of their building. Since the building's relatively open layout offered only limited protection against FPV drones, the men quickly realized that they had to change their position. After a brief consultation about whether to fall back or go on the offensive, the men quickly came to a decision, and that decision was to attack. Their first objective was a lone Russian soldier who was quickly cornered. To be safe, the Ukrainians used a thermobaric grenade.
Термобар! Давай, поїхав! Давай!
After the detonation, the men stormed the building again to throw another grenade.
Хорошо!
The Russian was taken out, and the men continued their clearing operation. Fortunately for them, the Russians, while constantly trying to hide from Ukrainian drones, had dispersed across several buildings, isolating their individual elements and making any concentrated or coordinated resistance difficult. However, this also forced the Ukrainians to painstakingly clear every building one by one in search of them. When another small Russian pocket of resistance was identified, the Ukrainians quickly pushed forward with speed and aggression to seize the initiative in the situation. This time, the Russians put up much stronger resistance, and an intense close-quarters firefight broke out. However, the Ukrainians managed to eliminate at least one of the Russians and offered the remaining ones a chance to surrender.
Мінус, мінус! Мінус!
Эй, русский, слышишь? Если выйдешь по-хорошему, я даю тебе честное слово. Я оставлю тебя в живых, мы тебя вывезем, потом тебя, возможно, обменяют. Будешь сопротивляться, ты сдохнешь. Русские не сдаются, да? Ну ладно.
The offer, however, was rejected by the Russians, and the fighting continued. Nonetheless, a second call to surrender was made.
Слышишь? Выйдешь, блядь, оставлю живых, обещаю.
It appeared that the Russians had retreated deeper into the building, prompting the Ukrainians to pursue them. The original video is about 10 minutes long and can be watched on the channel of the 3rd Assault Brigade. I'll link it in the description, as there's a lot of other equally intense footage I want to go through with you in this upload, so stay tuned. But before we continue, I'd like to ask you for a small favor that won't take much of your time but would be a huge help to me. Recently, YouTube has changed its algorithm again, and the videos aren't getting the attention they should. To counter this, it would be very helpful if you could give this video a like and, if possible, leave a relevant comment about the topic. That helps me a lot and shows me that all the effort I put in is worth it. Thanks in advance. While the video of the soldiers from the 3rd Assault Brigade is quite representative of many of the battles that have taken place at the front in recent months, the Russians have recently resumed deploying larger mechanized formations again, especially in the area around Pokrovsk. This drone video released by the Azov Brigade shows one of these assaults that took place on October 16th. According to Azov, 22 armored vehicles were involved in the attack, which might not sound like a huge number compared to Russia's troop buildup during the Battle of Avdiivka, for example, but it still ranks among the largest documented mechanized assaults in recent months. This is especially true considering that it was already the 3rd assault of this scale carried out by Russian forces in this area between October 9th and 16th, 2025. In the drone footage, the mechanized column can be seen coming under Ukrainian fire during the advance, though the footage was recorded from a larger distance. Nevertheless, several direct hits can be seen. It seems that the Ukrainians used a mix of artillery, other precision-guided munitions, and mines against the Russian formation. Azov reported that the main body of the Russian assault departed from the area of Minefields with the goal of capturing the settlement of Shakov. This picture, created by Infactum on Telegram, shows the movement of the column based on geolocations. Azov also reported that the enemy tried to change its offensive tactics. While Russian armored columns previously advanced from deeper within their own lines, this time on October 15 they attempted to move equipment closer to Shakove and conceal it in a forest belt. The maneuver failed, as 2 armored vehicles were spotted by reconnaissance and destroyed by artillery and FPV drones before reaching cover. The assault was preceded by another attack carried out on October 13th, during which the Russians launched an offensive involving 16 heavy armored vehicles, including BMPs, MTLBs, and tanks. In the first wave, motorcyclists advanced, followed by armored vehicles carrying infantry. Azov stated that the Russians used electronic warfare systems to suppress Ukrainian defense drones while the columns aimed to deliver infantry to the settlements, where they were expected to secure positions and later begin offensive actions to capture the designated areas. Ukrainian drones were still able to operate, however, as we can clearly see in the footage. According to Ukrainian sources, confirmed enemy losses amounted to 78 servicemen, and virtually all of the vehicles were destroyed. The first of the 3 assaults, launched on October 9th, was the largest, involving 35 heavy armored vehicles. Ukrainian sources reported that the Russians conducted offensive actions in several waves and from different directions. Once again, groups of motorcyclists advanced first, followed by columns of armored vehicles, tanks, and infantry fighting vehicles carrying troops. In Volodymyrivka, the Russians managed to deploy 32 infantrymen, 12 of whom were taken out immediately. The remaining soldiers tried to hide in destroyed houses and basements, but in the evening and at night, heavy bomber crews struck those shelters. On that day, 1 armored tractor, 3 tanks, and 16 enemy armored fighting vehicles were destroyed or damaged. Additionally, 41 motorcycles and 2 light vehicles were lost. In terms of infantry, 107 were reportedly killed, and 51 were wounded. When adding everything up, Russian losses amount to 45 armored vehicles, 44 motorcycles, and at least 180 soldiers KIA. A heavy toll, not even including the wounded soldiers or damaged vehicles. While these recently intensified assaults might suggest that the Russians are falling back into old habits after their so-called summer offensive failed to achieve the desired results, after all, the territorial gains we've seen in recent months have steadily declined. It could also be that the Russians are feeling somewhat pressured by Trump's renewed impatience with Putin and his delaying tactics. While this is, of course, just a possibility, there are still several things that could indicate it. For one, there's the dichotomy between what Trump wants and what the Russians are doing. In short, what Trump basically wants is to end this war as quickly as possible, and to achieve that, he has been quite accommodating toward the Russians since taking office. For one, there was the public humiliation of Zelensky, but also the fact that, by temporarily halting the sharing of key intelligence information with Ukrainian forces in Kursk, he effectively allowed Putin to regain control over the occupied parts of the region without much difficulty. And how did the Russians respond to this back then? Well, they basically strapped the Soviet flag back on and charged straight toward the Ukrainians, as if it were only a matter of time before the old glory of the Soviet Union would return. And what happened after the Trump-Putin-Alaska summit, where Trump essentially rolled out the red carpet for Putin and both sides stated that there had been broad consensus on Ukraine and the fact that the war must come to an end? Well, the Russians charged at the Ukrainians again, but this time, they strapped an American flag alongside the Russian flag onto a captured vehicle, as if it were now Russia and the USA against Ukraine. Oh yeah, and they ramped up their deep strikes against Ukraine, targeting everything from civilian areas to critical infrastructure. And these strikes were heavier than ever before. The Ukrainians were previously only able to retaliate against this type of attack with drones, but the interception rate of these fixed-wing loitering munitions is relatively high, and their range is not as great as that of missiles. Nevertheless, the Ukrainians managed to continue this approach, and time and again, Ukrainian drones succeeded in evading Russian defensive fire. This led to a series of spectacular, high-profile attacks, and with the introduction of a domestically produced cruise missile called Flamingo, the Ukrainians were now even able to strike targets deep inside Russia without restrictions. The missile primarily targeted and severely damaged Russia's energy infrastructure, marking the first time Ukraine's strategic response to Russia's bombing campaign had a measurable effect. And here's another reason why this attack could also be a sign that the pressure on Putin has increased. After all, Russia's oil industry is crucial to funding this war. Recent reports also revealed that the United States supplied Ukraine with vital intelligence to strike these sites, and combined with the fact that Trump has kept the option open to also supply Ukraine with cruise missiles, this becomes even more probable.
I did actually say, would you mind if I gave a couple of thousand Tomahawks to your opposition. I did say that to him. I said it just that way. He didn't like the idea. He really didn't like the idea.
In response to the recent developments, there was also a more than 2-hour-long phone call between Trump and Putin, during which they agreed to hold another meeting. Shortly afterward, Trump posted the following: "I have just concluded my telephone conversation with President Vladimir Putin of Russia, and it was a very productive one. President Putin congratulated me and the United States on the great accomplishment of peace in the Middle East, something that, he said, has been dreamed of for centuries. I actually believe that the success in the Middle East will help in our negotiation in attaining an end to the war with Russia divided by Ukraine." President Putin thanked the First Lady, Melania, for her involvement with children. He was very appreciative and said that this will continue. "We also spent a great deal of time talking about trade between Russia and the United States when the war with Ukraine is over. At the conclusion of the call, we agreed that there will be a meeting of our high-level advisors next week. The United States' initial meetings will be led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, together with various other people, to be designated. A meeting location is to be determined. President Putin and I will then meet in an agreed-upon location, Budapest, Hungary, to see if we can bring this inglorious war between Russia and Ukraine to an end." A day later, there was a meeting between Trump and Zelensky, after which Trump posted the following: "The meeting with President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine was very interesting and cordial, but I told him, as I likewise strongly suggested to President Putin, that it is time to stop the killing and make a deal. Enough blood has been shed, with property lines being defined by war and guts. They should stop where they are. Let both claim victory, let history decide. No more shooting, no more death, no more vast and unsustainable sums of money spent. This is a war that would have never started if I were president. Thousands of people being slaughtered each and every week, no more. Go home to your families in peace." And Zelensky agreed, but listen for yourself.
We have to stop where we are, and he is right. President is right, and we have to stop where we are. This is important, to stop where we are, and then to speak.
And President Trump also re-emphasized this once again verbally after the meeting.
I met with President Zelensky, as you know, today. They should stop the war immediately. You go by the battle line wherever it is, otherwise it's too complicated. You'll never be able to figure it out. You stop at the battle line, and both sides should go home, go to their families, stop the killing, and that should be it. Stop right now at the battle line. I told that to President Zelensky. I told it to President Putin. Thank you very much, everybody.
The way he and Trump are framing it sounds like they're proposing to freeze the conflict along the current front line, which would mean Russia keeps all the territory it has captured so far. A huge concession by Ukraine, given that its strategic goal was to reclaim all of its territory. It also makes it clear that the ball is now unmistakably in Putin's court, bringing us back to the recently renewed aggressiveness of Russian forces. Because it may now be that, for the first time, the Russians are beginning to realize that their gamble with Trump is backfiring and that they could face unforeseen consequences if they continue to toy with him and try to stall with further delays. It seems we're once again in a situation similar to early 2024, when I already reported that Russia's plan was to bring as much territory as possible under its control in case Trump were to push hard for a quick end to the war and simply freeze the conflict. In my first Ukraine war update of 2024, I talked about exactly this scenario, and even raised the question of what might happen if the Russians tried to play Trump for a fool. It now appears that we're about to find out nearly 2 years later. As mentioned, the ball is now in Russia's court. I will also link the video I talked about in the description box so you can listen for yourself and see how well it aged. However, on the other hand, it strongly appears that even if the Russians have realized that, at some point, they will eventually have to abandon their breadcrumb stalling tactics with Trump, they are still testing the waters to see how far they can go, especially after Trump indirectly made another concession ahead of his upcoming meeting with Putin, when he walked back on the Tomahawk issue.
Hopefully we'll be able to get the war over with without thinking about tomahawks.
During the call with Trump, Putin already demanded that Ukraine hand over territory instead of agreeing to a freeze of the front line. Here he particularly meant the Donetsk region, where the recent failed assaults took place, but as a wise man once said, we will see. Here we see a group of Russian drones trying to finish off an abandoned Bradley, which turns out to be quite a challenge for them. The first fixed-wing drone appears to fail to detonate entirely, followed by an FPV drone that hits the vehicle but causes little additional damage. A second fixed-wing drone also misses the Bradley, and the fourth and final drone, which is filming the entire scene, gets caught in the Bradley's protective netting. And here we have interesting Ukrainian drone footage showing a Russian UAZ Bukanka, triggering several mines with electromagnetic fuses that were tactically placed by Ukrainian drones. It seems that a total of 5 mines were triggered, after which the vehicle caught fire but kept rolling for some time. The crew, however, miraculously managed to jump out of the burning vehicle and flee. Mines, and especially their sheer number, are a major problem for both men and machines in Ukraine. Larger, clearly visible concentrations of mines can be deliberately detonated by drones or other means if they are found, and especially anti-tank mines can also be bypassed by smaller, lighter vehicles, as these video examples recorded by Russian soldiers show fairly well. However, especially individual mines tactically placed by drones are insidious and often have to be cleared manually by soldiers. The same applies to anti-personnel mines, and quite often, rather unconventional methods are used for this as seen here. This, of course, also comes with risks, especially when dealing with things like FPV drones, where one should be extremely careful and choose the length of the stick wisely. But with that, we now move on to the Telegram part of the video. The link to it is in the description, so see you there.